During the age of the Buddha and Mahavira, the large Mahajanapadas headed by different tribal leaders dotted the landscape of the Indian subcontinent. Expansion of territories led to the realization of the concept of an empire comprising a number of kingdoms knitted together into a political unit under a centralized leadership. We have already read how, under mighty rulers such as Bimbisara and his son Ajatashatru, Magadha emerged as the most powerful Mahajanapada in North India. They belonged to a line of rulers called the Haryankas or Haryanka dynasty. The Haryankas were succeeded by another line of rulers named the Shishunagas. The Shishunagas were succeeded by still another line of rulers, the Nandas. Mahapadma Nanda was one of the important rulers of this dynasty. With a large, powerful and trained army at his disposal, he exercised considerable influence over other rulers of his time. In about 326 BCE, when the ruler of Macedonia, Alexander, famously known as Alexander the Great, attacked northwestern India, Magadha was ruled by Dhanananda, the son and successor of Mahapadma Nanda. Alexander's invasion. Alexander was a great military leader. He had a highly skilled army under the control of brave and committed commanders. He entered the Indian subcontinent through the northwestern passes and defeated a number of frontier states. Contemporary accounts clearly indicate that he had a tough fight with a gallant Indian king named Porus, Puru, whose kingdom was on the west banks of the river Indus. The battle is known in history as the Battle of Hydaspes, Jhelum River. It resulted in Alexander's victory. He crossed Indus and continued eastwards into the North Indian heartland. However, his soldiers refused to fight, probably because they were homesick and they had heard tales of the powerful Nanda army. Alexander was thus forced to retreat. Before he returned, he appointed governors in India to look after the territories conquered by him. Alexander's attack broke the strength of tribal states of North India. Chandragupta, a young and ambitious warrior from Magadha, grabbed this opportunity to establish control over these states and build an empire. Dhanananda, the king of Magadha, had a large and powerful army. However, he was not popular among his subjects. Chandragupta, with the support of his chief advisor and mentor Chanakya, overthrew him and led the foundation of the Maurya dynasty. Maurya dynasty, Chandragupta Maurya, 321 to 297 BCE. We don't know much about the early life of Chandragupta. He might have been born around 340 BCE. Ancient Greek and Latin sources refer to him as Sandrocotus. It seems that Chandragupta served the Nandas for some time and sought refuge in the northwest. There, he learned the art of warfare. He got support and inspiration from a wise Brahmin teacher at Takshashila, now in Pakistan, named Chanakya or Kautilya. Impressed with Chandragupta's talent, Chanakya decided to give him proper training in warfare and statecraft. With his help, Chandragupta established the Mauryan Empire in Magadha in 321 BCE. This was the first empire in the history of India. After consolidating his position in Magadha, Chandragupta conquered Punjab and other parts of North India. In the northwest, Chandragupta concluded a marriage alliance with Alexander's general, Seleucus Nicator, and married his daughter. Territories covering modern Afghanistan were given to him as part of this alliance. Chandragupta also conquered many areas in the south. His empire stretched beyond the Vindhyas up to the Deccan. Thus, his empire extended from the Hindu Kush in the northwest to Bengal in the east and the Himalayas in the north to the Narmada in the south. Chandragupta set up his capital at Patliputra. It was a large city surrounded by a wooden wall. The wall had holes for shooting arrows during a battle. A moat, ditch filled with water, ran along the outer boundary of the wall, which provided extra safety. Chandragupta lived in a luxurious palace. According to Megasthenes, the kingdom of Magadha was well administered. The empire was divided into 4 provinces, each under a prince. Chandragupta ruled with absolute power. He was the commander-in-chief of the army. He held open darbars to hear the grievances of the common people. He introduced the spy system. Spies were appointed to keep him informed about the happenings in the empire. Chandragupta's rule lasted for about 24 years. According to Jaina texts, he became a follower of Mahavira towards the end of his life. Thereafter, he abdicated his throne and joined a group of Jaina monks led by Bhadrabahu during their journey to Shravanabelgola in Karnataka. In keeping with the Jaina spiritual tradition, he deliberately ended his life there while fasting unto death. Bindusara, 297 to 272 BCE. Chandragupta was succeeded by his son Bindusara. In classical Sanskrit and other indigenous sources, he is referred to by different names such as Amitraghat, Mahasen, etc. Ancient Greco-Latin texts refer to him as Amitrocate. Nothing much is known about his rule. He might have maintained friendly relations with his neighboring state. During his reign, the Mauryan Empire extended as far as Mysore in the south. Only the region of Kalinga and the kingdoms on the extreme south of India were not part of his empire. Bindusara maintained friendly relations with Greek rulers in Asia and Africa. Some of them were Antiochus of Syria, Ptolemy of Egypt, Megas of Cyrene, etc. Bindusara ruled for about 25 years and kept intact whatever he inherited from his father. In about 272 BCE, he was succeeded by his son and the most famous of the Mauryas, Ashoka. However, most of the sources of that time suggest that he might have ascended the throne of Magadha not before 269 BCE. Ashoka, 269 to 232 BCE. Ashoka is regarded as one of the greatest rulers not only in the history of India but that of the entire world. As a young prince, Ashoka was brilliant, ambitious and ruthless. He ruled from his capital, Patliputra. Revolts in Ujjain and Takshashila were crushed by him. Like his grandfather, Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka followed the policy of expansion. Kalinga War, turning point in Ashoka's life. When Ashoka came to the throne, Kalinga was the only major kingdom which was unconquered. Kalinga was strategically situated. The route to South India and Southeast Asia, both by land and sea, passed through it. He was determined to conquer Kalinga as it would add the prosperity of the Mauryan Empire. In 261 BCE, Ashoka marched against Kalinga, modern Odisha, and conquered it after a fierce battle. The Kalinga War was one of the most important historical events during the reign of Ashoka. He was moved by the massive slaughter and bloodshed. The death, destruction and suffering that he saw made him sad. So, he resolved not to fight another war. He decided to conquer the people not by violence and force, but by love and compassion. After the Kalinga War, Ashoka embraced Buddhism. It became a world religion due to Ashoka's efforts. He also ended forced labor. Ashoka maintained friendly relations with states across Asia and Europe. He also sponsored Buddhist missions to a number of countries. He ruled for nearly 40 years. He was one of the most successful and famous monarchs in Indian history. Ashoka was also known as Piyadasi or Priyadarsi. Ashoka's Dhamma. Dhamma is a Prakrit form of the Sanskrit word dharma, which means religious duty. After shunning violence, Ashoka accepted Dhamma Vijaya, that is, conquest through dharma. The edicts of Ashoka give us his ideas about Dhamma. Ashoka's Dhamma was mainly influenced by Buddhism. It was based on tolerance, non-violence, and respect for elders. The main principles of Dhamma are outlined below. To live together in peace and harmony, to speak the truth, to respect other religions, to follow the path of ahimsa, that is, non-violence and non-injury to all living creatures, to show charity to the poor and be kind to all. Masters should be kind to their servants. Children should respect and obey their elders. Ashoka undertook many welfare measures. The welfare of the people was Ashoka's main concern. Spread of Dhamma. Ashoka took many steps to spread Dhamma. Some of them are briefly discussed here. Ashoka himself followed the principles of Dhamma. Ashoka issued edicts, royal orders to spread the message of Dhamma. Ashoka himself toured the kingdom. He also sent a number of royal delegations abroad to spread the message of Dhamma in other countries. His son Mahendra and daughter Sanghamitra led one such delegation that reached Ceylon, now Sri Lanka. Ashoka appointed special offers called Dhamma Mahamattas or Dharma Mahamatras to interpret and carry out royal orders. Ashoka's edicts. The edicts were engravings on pillars, pillar edicts, and rocks, rock edicts. They were set up in public places all over the empire. Most of the edicts were written in Prakrit language using the Brahmi script. In some edicts, Aramaic language and Kharoshthi script were used for the local population to easily understand the essence of the royal order. Ashokan edicts give us a lot of invaluable information regarding some of the major events that took place during his reign, his ideas and worldview, etc. From the Rock Edict 13th, for instance, we come to know that during the Kalinga War, people suffered as thousands of them were captured and thousands killed in the war. In another edict, he announces, "All men are my children, and just as I desire for my children that they may enjoy every kind of prosperity and happiness, so also I desire the same administration under the Mauryas." Numerous literary sources as well as the rock and pillar edicts of Ashoka give us a detailed account of the Mauryan administration. Different levels of administration. The Mauryan Empire had an efficient administrative system. It functioned at 4 levels: central, provincial, district and village. The capital city of Patliputra was administered separately. Central administration. The king was the supreme authority. He took all important decisions. A council of ministers, Mantri Parishad, assisted him. The various branches of administration such as agriculture, defense, revenue, security, etc. were under officials called Amatyas. Provincial administration. We know from the Ashokan edicts the names of the 4 provincial capitals. They were Tosali in the east, Ujjain in the west, Suvarnagiri in the south, and Takshashila in the north. Each province was headed by a Kumara or royal prince. The prince ruled the province as the representative of the monarch. The Kumara was assisted by Mahamatya, prime minister, and a Mantri Parishad, council of ministers. District administration. Each province was divided into a number of districts. The head of the district was Pradeshta. He was assisted by junior officials such as the Yuktas and the Rajukas. At the district level, some important functions were survey and assessment of land, collection of revenue, and maintenance of law and order. Village administration. Each district consisted of many villages. The village was the smallest political unit. Its head was Dharmadhyaksha. He was responsible for collection of taxes, keeping records of births and deaths and other law and order problems. He was answerable to the Pradeshta. Welfare measures. The welfare of the people was always the prime concern for the Mauryas. Chandragupta undertook many welfare projects such as construction of roads and planting of trees. Ashoka was even more concerned about his subjects and made a lot of efforts to ensure their comfort and convenience. He built good roads for the travelers under his rule. To provide the travelers with shade and food, fruit trees were planted along the roads. Wells were dug at regular intervals to provide water. For the weary travelers, rest houses were built. Ashoka also built many hospitals, both for people and animals. For the cultivation of medicinal herbs, Ashoka set up a number of nurseries. Armies. The Mauryas had a large army. The army was under an official called Senapati. He was the army commander. He was responsible for the warfare and maintenance of army. The Mauryan army included infantry, cavalry, elephants, chariots and navy. The army was equipped with bows, arrows, swords, armor, shields, etc. The army defended the kingdom from external attacks. It also maintained law and order within the empire. The officers and soldiers were adequately trained and regularly paid. Spy system. One of the important features of the Mauryan Empire was its spy system. The Mauryan king maintained a large and efficient spy system. The spies were trained. Most of the spies were women. They were posted in different parts of the kingdom. They informed the king about the developments within the kingdom and outside. The spies also collected public opinion on different important issues. Economy and society. Taxes. Land revenue was the main source of income for the Mauryan government. It was fixed between 1/4 and 1/6 of the produce. The tax depended on the fertility of the soil. Forests, mines, customs, trade, crafts, as well as fines and gifts were other sources of income. A system of water tax and road tax is also mentioned in the Arthashastra. The money collected through taxes was spent on the maintenance of the army, payment of salaries to government officials, charities, building works, and on public utility services such as building roads and hospitals. The priests and monks did not pay taxes. Sometimes tribute was collected from different classes of people. Unlike taxes, which were collected regularly, tributes were collected whenever the royal authorities found this necessary. Tributes were mostly paid in kind. Occupation. Most of the people of the Mauryan Empire were farmers. There are evidences of other groups such as artisans, herdsmen, carpenters, potters, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, etc. A large number of people were employed in the army of the king. Some worked as government officials. Trade. Trade flourished during the Mauryan period. The traders organized themselves in guilds. Both inland and overseas trade flourished. Patliputra, Ujjain, Takshashila and Broj were important inland trading centers. Caravan traders carrying large quantities of goods moved from one part of the country to another. Trade relations with other countries such as Sri Lanka, China, Rome, Egypt, etc. were maintained. All traders had to pay taxes and customs duties depending upon the value of their goods. Society. Different aspects of society during the Mauryan period have been described vividly in Indica and the Arthashastra. According to Megasthenes, the upper classes, that is the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, enjoyed privileged position in society. Majority of the people were farmers. There were also artisans, herdsmen, soldiers and magistrates. People of all castes lived together peacefully. Art and architecture. After the Harappan period, the next stage of the Indian art began in the Mauryan period. Mauryan art reached perfection during the reign of Ashoka. Ashoka paid special attention towards art and architecture. The remains of stupas, stone pillars and monasteries reflect the mastery of the Mauryan craftspersons over stone. The palace of Ashoka was made of stone and wood. Stupas were dome-shaped structures where relics of the Buddha or Buddhist monks were kept. The stupa at Sanchi near Bhopal is known as the Great Stupa. The surface of the stupa was generally built of bricks with a thick layer of plaster. It was crowned with an umbrella of stones. The monolithic pillars of Ashoka on which his famous edicts were inscribed are great monuments of the Mauryan period. The Ashokan pillars were made of sandstone. These were beautifully polished. According to some historians, these pillars have a Persian influence. The most striking feature of these pillars is the finely carved animal figure at the top called the lion capital. The most famous pillar is at Sarnath near Varanasi. 4 lions sitting back to back and facing the 4 directions are carved on the top of this pillar. Below each lion is a wheel or chakra. The lion capital is now the national emblem of the Government of India. The wheel or chakra has found a place in our national flag.